So thank you so much for joining today's live demonstration of the Biotage Horizon 5000, our automated disk extraction system. My name is Monica, and I am the EMEA Market Segment and Application Lab Manager at Biotage, and I will be chairing today's session. So with me today, I have my fantastic team behind the scenes. First, we have Emma from Sweden, who invited you all and helped this session happen. And then behind the cameras, we have Tom in Cardiff, who leads our applications lab and will also be helping run the cameras for today's session. And then, of course, we have Wayne, our technical expert, who will be presenting the Horizon 5000 system today and guiding you through the live demonstration. So before we begin, just a few practical notes. All participants will remain muted throughout, but we would still like this session to be as interactive as it can be. So if you have any questions during the demo, feel free to type them into the question box, which is just on the top right of the screen. And you won't be able to see each other's comments, but we will review them as we go along, and we will respond to them live as and when the natural flow of the demo will allow, or at the end during the Q&A session. We already have actually a lot of questions, so thank you so much for sending them in during the registration. In case we don't get to them all, we will reach out to you via email, so don't worry about that. We will also ask a few poll questions throughout the session just to keep things interactive. There will be about 4 questions to answer. So today we will give you a clear overview of the Horizon 5000 system, why labs use it, especially for large water samples containing particulates that clog standard cartridge systems, and how it supports multiple applications. For example, dispersed oil in water in compliance with ISO 9377-2, to analyzing organic compounds within wastewater matrices in compliance with EPA methods like 525 and 625. And then we have the EPA 1694 for the pharmaceuticals, and then the extraction of pesticides and PCBs as outlined in EPA methods 8081 and 8082, just a few examples. And then Wayne will walk you through the hardware, the software, the demo setup, and then we will run an example pharmaceutical in water method, highlighting the features of the system. And then, like I said earlier, we will finish with a Q&A session. So welcome again. And before we begin, let's start with our first poll question. So the first question will be, what best describes your current sample prep workflow? So if you could choose the answer and vote, that would be much appreciated. So the answers are fully manual, semi-automated, some steps are automated, fully automated, or outsourced to a contract lab. Perfect. I'm going to end this poll question, and you can see the results as well. So thank you very much. And now let's begin. Wayne, all yours. Take it away.
So good morning and good afternoon to everyone who's joined us. And as was mentioned, we're introducing our Horizon 5000 system here. Now, many of you will be either running labs or doing the actual analysis in the lab for environmental samples, and quite possibly analyzing things from SVOCs to pharmaceuticals, perhaps hormones, PAHs, or any other environmental contaminants. And if that's something you or your lab does, you will very likely be well aware of the headaches that we normally encounter, with SPE being quite often rather slow when done manually, encountering a lot of bottlenecks, having analyst to analyst variation, and also not to mention the fact that your analysts are often exposed to various really hazardous solvents. Now, to make things worse, most environmental samples are not pristine. They will contain really high amounts of suspended solids, particles, sediment, or any of the above, including organic materials. Now, those sort of characteristics of a sample will very often clog your cartridges. And this is why we've created the Horizon 5000 system, which uses disk SPE technology. And it was really created with one sort of focus in mind, and that's one system for every sample, no matter how dirty that is. So the system is designed to accommodate samples from 40 milliliters up to 2 liters, and it will do your conditioning, sample loading, bottle rinsing, as is required by many regulatory methods, and then sample elution into the collection vessel. So firstly, we can go through just the basics of the hardware. So atop here, you'll have something that's very familiar to most people that have used HPLC, which is just your solvent storage at the top. And this system accommodates 7 different solvents. Then each station has its own waste lines, which are separated into organic and aqueous waste. And then you have a very simple setup here where your original sample bottle is attached directly to the water inlet valve. This enables you to minimize any sample handling that you might need to do. Then your water inlet valve, your SPE disc platform, and your collection vessel just here. So the most important part of this setup really is the disc platform, which has essentially 4 pieces with a mesh screen for support at the bottom, where we can then add an SPE disc, which is a 47 millimeter disc here, which pops in there. Then we put the collar on, and this screws on. And this is where your solid phase extraction will take place. Now, of course, depending on how particulate rich samples you have, we have also pre-filters to layer up the extraction and allow filtering during the extraction. If you have really challenging matrices that contain really fine suspended solids, then you can use diatomaceous earth as well as quartz wool to really increase those layers and help the sample to process directly. And as I've mentioned, this really eliminates any pre-extraction sample workup. Now your disc holders sit just here, and as you can see, it's a very short flow path from the sample bottle to the disc holder. Now, additionally, the sample is loaded by gravity. So as opposed to having a valve that opens or closes, this uses very simple physics where once the disc holder fills up, then water can no longer get into the sample bottle and the loading stops. And then once the sample is processed through, the loading continues. So now we can go through some of the software. I can show you how to load up a method, and you can see how easy it is to use the system.
Right, so whilst we're waiting for that, I'm gonna launch yet another poll question, if I may. So the question here is, which step is the most challenging one in your workflow? So is it the extraction, the evaporation, the SPE cleanup, reconstruction, or the instrument analysis? So if I could ask you to give your votes, that would be great, please. All right, thank you very much. So it looks like it is the extraction that seems to be causing the most issues, and that's actually not a surprise. So I guess that's why we are all here today. Thank you very much for the answers. I'm gonna close the poll for now. Wayne, all yours.
Okay, so you hopefully you can see my screen here, which is the home screen of the Horizon 5000 software. Now the software is very simple and easy to use. Each of the 3 stations is visible on the screen, as you can see here, and you can have real-time feedback during the extraction. Now, if you are expanding your throughput, a single PC can control up to 4 modules, as you can see here, modules 1 to 4 labeled. Of course, we only have 1 plugged in. And this does allow you to run up to 12 samples simultaneously, with each module able to run disparate methods simultaneously. Now, as mentioned for today, for today's demo, we'll be running a method very similar to the EPA method for pharmaceuticals. Of course, this will be shortened for the demo purposes. But here, we essentially just select the module we want to use, and we can assign a method. And we have a method selected here. We have a drop-down list, all the different methods we can have. In this case, we can select the method, select the stations which we want to assign it on, And of course, you can also enter or scan sample ID using a barcode or type manually, which of course helps you with reporting and keeping track of everything that's run, as well as the operator ID. Now, once we selected the station we want to run, all we need to do is assign and click OK. This downloads the method into the system, and then we are good to go. You can also see our reports button here. So as soon as every extraction is finished, a report is created, which you are able to export and import directly into your LIMS system, again, for compliance and monitoring. So without further ado, we can start the extraction process. And all we have to do is click Start Run, and the system initiates. So the first step being the conditioning of the SPE disk, which is done automatically, where your conditioning solvent will be taken from your chosen solvent, one of the seven there. And then this will carry on. So this is the SPE disk being conditioned. And the system uses two types of pumps. So we have a solvent delivery pump, which delivers all your solvents. And then we have a vacuum pump, which draws the solvent through the disk and into the waste or your collection vessel, depending on the stage of the operation.
I'm just going to take a question here whilst we are waiting, Wayne, if that's okay. There is a question on nitrogen use.
Yes.
How much nitrogen the system uses?
So the system doesn't actually require any nitrogen. The system can use the vacuum pumps to dry the disk. But if you do want to use nitrogen, then that is optional, and you can plug it in at the back. But as I said, that's not a requirement at all for the system, and you can dry the SPE disk using just air and the vacuum pumps pulling air.
Fantastic, thank you.
As you can see, we have the samples loading. And in this case, using the disk allows a much faster load rate. You will see that this half a liter sample will get processed in about 2 to 3 minutes. Now, of course, for the purpose of the demo, we have clean samples here. However, if something you're working with is wastewater samples, very dirty matrices, this is something we can arrange a demo with you specifically. You can send samples in, and we can show you exactly how the system would work with your samples.
Right, so whilst we are waiting for the loading, I'll take the next poll question. So we only have 2 left. This next one is about what type of water samples are you mainly using in your lab? So we have several categories: clean drinking water, groundwater, and then we have surface water such as rivers, lakes, and seawater, and then wastewater, including high particulates, muddy samples, and then industrial and highly contaminated waters, and mixed sample types. So if I could ask you to vote for the options, please. There we go. So it looks like most of the labs are analyzing mainly wastewater with high particulates, which is exactly what the Horizon 5000 is built for.
And whilst the samples are loading, we can have some more questions if anyone has any.
Sure. So there was a question on EPA 625.1. The lab is looking to transition from liquid-liquid extraction to SPE and would like to have any helpful information to assist with the process.
I believe that's something we already have an application note for.
Yes, it's application note 930. This application note is actually uploaded amongst the materials on the top right of the screen, so you can directly download that. but we have a lot of other application notes, not just the ones we uploaded here, which if you go to the Horizon 5000 webpage on the Biotage website, you can download all sorts of application notes from there, but you could also reach out to us and we can also send you some other ones that we also have in the bank. And then there was also a question on EPA 525.2, whether the system can be used for the application for that, and the answer to that is also yes. We have an application note number 950, which describes the EPA 525.2 method as well. Should we take more questions now, Wayne?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. So someone was asking if this instrument can be also used for cooking oil. Would you like to touch upon that?
Yes. So I'm assuming the analysis spoken about is oil and grease. There are different types. There is oil and grease analysis that you might do gravimetrically by just extracting the sample and then weighing your leftover hexane extractable material, or you might want to analyze the different oils and fats or different oil index via GC. And that's all of these are supported on the system. And we do have application notes already for all these applications that you can find online.
Exactly. The compatibility of the system with a high suspended solids.
Yes.
You mentioned that earlier in your introduction, but if you would like to, or if you could.
Yeah, so as was explained, the system was really done with one purpose in mind, and that's to have one system process all of your samples without the need to essentially do any work prior to the SPE extraction. And so yes, this is all you have to do is, as mentioned earlier, layer the disc, or on top of the disc rather, with pre-filters, diatomaceous earth if you have really small particles in there, as well as quartz wool, and this will allow you to properly process a sample without clogging of the disc. The system also allows bottle rinsing, so anything that's left on the bottle, you will be able to rinse the original bottle sample, which is again a requirement in plenty of methods, and then elute using the rinse aid. Okay, and as we can see here, the samples have been processed, and you have your eluted extract ready for evaporation, if that's something that you need to do, or in some cases, as mentioned, gravimetric analysis or direct injection. So as you can see, the system automates the whole process from sort of disc conditioning to loading to bottle rinsing, as well as the elution of your analytes. So the system really is great for reproducibility, for particulate handling, as well as solvent reduction. Now, as you saw, this is a method for pharmaceuticals in water, and of course the system is great for, as we saw from the poll, many of you analyzing really challenging matrices. But if you're working with more clean water samples, perhaps drinking water, groundwater, or surface water, we also have a new system that can extract 8 samples simultaneously. That is called the PrepXpert-8. And on that system, you can do, as well as all these other environmental applications, we can also do PFAS extraction. And for those interested in pharmaceuticals, we will have a webinar coming out in the next couple of months or so that will detail the automation or automated extraction of antibiotics from water using our new PrepXpert-8 system.
Let's take another question whilst we're waiting. Sure. What is the smallest elution volume possible?
So the smallest elution volume possible will be 1 milliliter.
Okay. And then there was a question on a GR45 thread. Is it possible to use bottles with GR45 thread?
Yes, we have a variety of different adapters, including GL45, that allows you, again, if your samples come in GL45 threaded bottles, then you can directly add those to the system, and all the operations like bottle rinsing will still work as intended.
Thank you, Wayne. We have a question on, is there any water left at the extraction, after the extraction in the flask?
So that will depend. So yes, you will always have some water on the disc, and this is where the drying time is very important. But with efficient drying, this can be kept to a very minimum, and your final extract will not contain water, or oil be a very insignificant amount. Now, if this is something that's very detrimental, then we can incorporate use of sodium sulfate and things like that to dry your extracts.
Thank you. So we have many other questions. Should we take a few more?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, okay, all right. So there is a long list. I'm going to try and pick the most relevant ones here. Those questions we are not answering right away. We'll get back to you via email. So there was a question on, can the system generate reports? I think you have briefly showed the function on the software.
Yes. So after every run, the system will create a report that you can export in PDF format, and that will detail absolutely everything from the time it took to carry out each step, the configured solvents on the system, to the exact method, and any alerts or anything that may have gone wrong during the run.
And can this data from the system be exported to LIMS?
Yes, yes, it can. The reports that it creates are compatible with LIMS systems.
Okay. We really have a lot of questions here. So there is one on, we are having a lot of difficulty, especially with filtering samples containing particulates in 1 liter volumes. Mm-hmm. You mentioned adding a pre-filter for this type of sample. Is there a risk of clogging or leakage?
Yes, so we have pre-filters. So in this case, these are the same size. We also have a fast flow disc holder, which essentially has a much larger surface area at the top, with the SPE disc much smaller at the bottom, so which looks just like this. And again, the key to proper processing of these type of samples with heavy large suspended solids amounts is really the proper layering on top of the disc to not clog the disc. And as I mentioned, we start with pre-filters. You can use diatomaceous earth, quartz wool. We have further mesh screens, and through proper essentially build of the whole disc holder, you can avoid any sort of work that you might need to do yourself, and the system will just process the sample. If for some reason you do have an event where you did not layer the disc enough and it has indeed clogged, the system will alert you and also give you instructions on how to remedy the situation, so you don't lose any sample and you don't essentially lose your analysis. But generally, with experience and running the system more and more, most customers find that they don't need to do anything, and the system will handle, as I said, samples from wastewater to all the way to clean water.
Okay, so what is the advantage of using a disc SPE?
So the disc firstly allows you to have a much larger surface area. Again, this aids in clog prevention, but then also this much larger surface area allows a much higher flow rate to be applied during your sample load. So as you noticed, it only took a couple of minutes or so to process a half a liter of sample. That's roughly over 100 milliliters per minute, which very rarely you'd be able to achieve on a cartridge if you're doing SPE using cartridges.
Thank you, Wayne. Can you just please remind us how many solvents the system can accommodate?
So it's 7. In total, it's 7 solvents that go all on top of the system. And you assign the solvents in the software. There's plenty of preset solvents. or you can add your own, and all you have to do is just adjust the density compared to water to ensure that the system delivers the right quantities of solvent.
Right, and then you mentioned we can basically process up to 12 samples by linking 4 instruments together. Yes. And then control it from the same computer.
Yes, the same PC can control up to 4 instruments, so a total of 12 samples at the same time. And each module can run a completely different method.
Fantastic. There have been a few questions on sodium sulfate cartridge incorporation. So could you touch upon that, please?
Yeah, so we can't incorporate them directly, unfortunately, but we have ways of essentially setting up the collection vessel. So you have sodium sulfate usually contained on a piece of foil and a funnel, where your extract is going to pass that through before reaching your collection vessel. But we don't have a direct attachment for sodium sulfate cartridges before elution.
And there are questions on different applications. So just to highlight again, this system can be used for all sorts of different applications, and semi-volatiles are definitely one of them. I'm just mentioning that specifically because I see a lot of questions on that. There is an application note attached under the materials button on semi-volatiles, but we have more than just that one. We just uploaded an example, but on our website there will be more. Yes. And if you can't find the one that would fulfill your needs, please feel free to reach out to us and we can send you more.
Yes, absolutely.
On that. Right. So I think we do have time for a few more questions. So let me just pick a few. So we mentioned the sample compatibility with high suspended solids, then the nitrogen as well. Original sample bottles, can they be used on the system?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And as already mentioned, we have different cap adapters. So depending on the type of bottle you have, it may be a GL45, and we have adapters that will fit directly here. So you will be able to add your original sample bottle directly.
Sorry, my mic was off. There is a question, so I'm going to read this up. When you talked about filters, and if the system clogged, then it would guide you to what to do so you don't lose your samples. Currently, if we have a sample that is dirty, we will get a slow load, and the system will stop, but not give any way to solve the situation.
Mm-hmm. So the answer to this is very simple, really, is on the same station, if you have a clogged disk, what you do is you remove said disk, whatever is left in the disk holder, you pour into the original sample bottle, and then that position you carry on processing as is, so you essentially allow for elution, and then you process what's left in the original bottle on a new station. And then at the very end, you combine the 2 extracts, and you've not lost any sample.
Great, thank you very much. I hope that answers the question. Is there any more questions, or are there any more questions coming in? There is one on what features of the Horizon 5000 make it so that the nitrogen is not required for solvent delivery. The organization is interested in a 3100, which, by the way, we are also planning a live demo on. And we were told that a steady source of high purity nitrogen is necessary.
Yes, so the Horizon 3100 does use pressurized solvents, solvent canisters, which require dry pressurized gas source, of course, inert gas source, because it uses highly flammable solvents. But this specific instrument uses liquid pumps. So essentially, whereas the 3100 uses an external vacuum pump to pull all of your solvent through the disk, whilst using the pressurized gas to deliver solvent, This specific instrument uses solvent delivery pumps internally to deliver the solvent, and then vacuum to pull the solvent through the disc. But again, it's internal vacuum pumps, not external. So that's the key difference. So for the 3100, yes, but the 3100 is essentially designed for a specific application, which is oil and grease analysis, which is why it's only compatible with 2 solvents or 2 solvent lines.
Good, thank you very much. Okay, so we have one more last poll question, which I'm just going to launch in a second. And this would be, which applications are you currently working on in the lab? SVOCs or PAGs, pesticides, bisphenols, oil and grease, pharmaceuticals, PFAS, or other? Great. And with that, I'm going to end the question and share the results with you. Looks like there is a great mix between SVOCs and oil and grease. Thank you very much for all the answers. We do have more questions. Like I said, we will reach out to you personally via email to answer those that we didn't have the time to talk about today. But I think this would be a good point to end the demonstration. So I hope you enjoyed the session and it gave you some practical understanding on how the Horizon 5000 can support your workflows. And of course, a big thank you for joining us today and for all the engagement and for the great questions. We really, truly appreciate your time. So thank you so much for that. We will shortly send you an email after the session, including a certificate of attendance and our contact details as well. So please feel free to reach out. And I have seen a lot of questions on organizing demos, which will be possible. So reach out to us with any follow-up questions or if you would like to arrange a demo in your lab. And then, of course, thank you to my team for making this demo possible. Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, guys. And enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye, everyone.